Hi friends, welcome to this video. It's my thoughts and feelings on AI. It's been a while since I made a video about AI, so I wanted to kind of like give you an update. I made a PowerPoint presentation just to make sure I can stay on track without going on a 4-hour long tangent or something like that. I wanted to reach out to the community and connect with other people who are fascinated by AI and also keeping track of like what's coming out and what can be a useful tool for us as artists and engineers, especially for today's day and age and looking forward into the future. I definitely have a special interest in AI, and I also use it for work, especially with Visual Studio Code. I'm using Copilot, but basically a lot of the different softwares that I use are integrating AI at this point. So it's really exciting and it's a revolutionary tool I wanted to share with you. Some of the non-doom and gloom stories. AI has had a positive effect on my life in some ways, and I wanted to share what ways I felt could be useful for you, especially if you're an artist or engineer or somebody who has a creative idea in mind but maybe didn't know how to get there before. AI offers answers to all human questions. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and back then it was like AOL was the first messaging app that I ever used. All the time I would be like, what's the answer to this or that? And you would have to go to the library, go through the Dewey Decimal System to get to a book.
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Ever since I got into the habit of just Googling things or whatever, like, did become more easy. But now with ChatGPT and other AI assistants online, I find it to be way easier to get things done and get my questions answered. And I truly believe that at this point, as long as you have access to the internet or technology or whatever, then you should be able to get any question that you have answered in a much more timely manner, and you don't have to sit around waiting for your teachers or your parents or somebody else to answer your questions. You can just turn to AI. I would just go to ChatGPT personally, but you can make custom GPTs and they'll have different specialties. So you can have like a negotiator specialist or a lawyer or a doctor specialist or someone who specializes in like physics, homework, or something like that. So I made a custom GPT called Jenny X, and that one is a specialist in a handful of very important topics that I felt would be useful. There's all kinds of people, like college students and people who are specialists, and they make their own custom GPTs and they train them to understand specific things. So like, say you're learning about stem cell therapy, then you could ask a custom GPT that knows all about that, and it would tell you the best knowledge there is to know about that very specific thing. Or let's say your Uncle Bob gets some strange form of cancer no one's ever heard of. You could use like ChatGPT to start narrowing things down. That's maybe a pretty morbid example, but yeah, definitely having questions about health and wellness and just like general life questions was something that was severely lacking growing up in my life. Even if you have a trusted adult growing up, then your trusted adult may not be a specialist in certain areas that may be interesting to you or whatnot. I find having an AI assistant to be very helpful, and honestly, I had not realized until the last year and a half just how many questions I had maybe never asked anyone out of fear of just being judged or criticized or misunderstood, because there have been times when I'll be like, oh, I have this super off the wall question and I trust so and so, and I'm gonna just ask my best friend over here this really like off the wall question, and that person will think I'm like out of my mind, or some other misunderstanding will happen. So I find that asking ChatGPT questions that I may not want to ask an actual other human can be really helpful, and that is something I did a whole bunch of for a while. I just wanted to point out that AI art is taboo and ethically questionable, and anybody who's been following the news will know what I'm talking about, because first of all, I was like, this is so wild. Technology is so amazing, crazy. At first, I was not impressed because there was all these like extra fingers and extra limbs everywhere, and I was just not impressed, put it back down, and didn't even look again for like another year, because in the meantime, I heard about all these like anti-AI artists on like ArtStation and people that were really upset, understandably so, because there was like just training of the internet done non-consensually, which I think that not everybody totally got the memo that like when you load something onto the internet, it's never totally private ever again. Some of us learn this kind of stuff the hard way. If you know about like the Wayback Machine, once you load something onto the internet, a lot of the time it can get like downloaded by somebody else and then re-uploaded somewhere else. Basically, like I feel really bad for the artists who felt like they were safe in having a personal portfolio like up on ArtStation. There were like these data sets that were trained on the internet to learn what the human brain is like and how people think and how artists create art and how to recreate objects from diffusion. I'm super intrigued by how neural networks work, and I eventually got into using AI art after about a year of going back and forth in my mind. I was like, is this right? I was like, am I a terrible person for wanting to use AI art? And I was like, am I gonna go straight to hell for using AI art or whatever? And so I really had to I spent like a whole year asking myself like, how do I feel about this? And so yeah, but then I went like full force starting at the beginning of like 2023. So it's been a little over a year doing AI art. I've also been in weekly therapy this whole time, so that was really helpful, and I felt like I went through a process learning about AI and AI art and really kind of looking within and asking myself like, how would I feel if like my art was stolen? And there's definitely lists of artists who were trained by AI to learn their style without their consent. So I just wanted to acknowledge that that's the reality. So the way I look at it is that if I'm going to use AI art tools, then I was going to put some personal kind of rules in place for myself, not use any particular artist's style. AI art is taboo, and also because it's ethically questionable because people's actual artwork was trained by AI. I don't use specific artist names, and I'll try to be as unique as possible when it comes to my prompting. Normally, my AI art sessions will start with like an idea will come to mind. I just have a showered thought that comes to mind. I'd be like, oh, thank God for stable diffusion, because I would never have the time to create this scene that just came to my mind. Super elaborate thing. It would have just stayed trapped in my mind. It was like trapped imagination. I would even argue to say that Midjourney was somewhat of a transcendental tool, because like once I got over the hurdle of feeling like shameful and guilty and like, oh, I shouldn't use this tool because this and that, eventually I was like, all things considered, I don't want technology to get the best of me, and I want to be able to say, hey, I understand how this tool works and I can see the benefits, not just horror stories. There's already a lot of videos about the worst case scenarios, and I don't think that it's healthy to just feed into that kind of fear. So I think it's really important to have alternate perspectives in mind. So I wanted to share my thoughts and feelings. I've definitely been through a lot of different emotions since I got into this over a year ago. I've had a lot of fun learning about AI as we've gone along, but also it is better than ever, and especially even like, it took me so long to get this video started because every time I go to start, there's like some new breaking news, and it's just like, oh my god, every single day there's something new and exciting to say, and I'm like, I haven't even started my video. The main points list keeps getting longer and longer. We could practice some of our stand-up comedy while we're here. Midjourney became a transcendental tool after all that because of the timing and the fact that I had just got into therapy and I was like trying to get into art again. As long as you love yourself and who you are, then it's okay to have a bit of body dysmorphia. Playing dress up and wearing makeup and like trying different clothes and wigs and playing with AI art to see what I would look like as different characters has been really fun for me. I totally understand that not everyone would have that same effect. My one friend who is a game developer, shout out to my game developer friend, I wanted to bug you as you are one of the most active AI users I know, and I wanted to pick your brain on parts of it. And so they were like, for the stuff that you're making, what's your headspace when you start and what are you trying to do with it? Like, I see a lot of you blending yourself with lots of different styles and subject matters. What's your motivation for the work that you do? I'm so glad that you asked this question. I have reasons for why I didn't pursue acting or whatever, but looking back, I wish I had spent more time being in theater and stuff, so I thought, well, maybe I can use AI. Basically, my headspace will go where I am taking myself outside of all the boundaries which would otherwise constrict me and hold me down and make me just not want to use it in the first place. Usually it'll start with a shower thought or some other particular just idea. Since I have ADHD, I generally have 20 to 100 thoughts going through my mind at any given point. Sometimes I'll catch myself tripping over my thoughts because I'll literally have so many thoughts at once. This is kind of similar for if I was actually going to read a book or draw or something else that takes a lot of focus, because I have to like make the mental decision first and then have everything like ready to go. I have my markers and my paper within arm's reach. Even start setting it out like a few days ahead of time. Be like, all right, on Sunday I'm gonna do my nails. So on Wednesday I'll start thinking about, all right, what color do I want? And I'll just make a little pile off to the side, and like every so often I'll add one thing that I remember, oh, I'm gonna add this like particular sparkle or whatever, and I'll add it to my pile, and then by the time Sunday comes around. Anyway, sometimes it's like that with AI art too. I might come up with an idea. The cyberdelic mermaid thing that we did, I thought about that for several days before I had time to actually do it. I have a notepad for almost every topic. One is AI, so I'll have a list of AI things that I want to do. I refer to such as like my paragraph of negatives of stuff I never want to see. I never want to see certain things in my AI generations. Thank you very much. Positive prompts. A lot of the things I add are the same thing to make sure I'm high quality portrait, whatever, moody lighting, whatever it might be. So yeah, the headspace is part artist, part engineer, and also part dreamer. Once you're in that artistic flow state, then a lot more can happen, and I would definitely recommend being in your preferred flow state, whether that is through prompting, with AI art assistance, whatever your art utensil of choice is, utensil modality, art. Anyway, thanks for asking this question. I love it when people pique my curiosity about my own self and make me wonder, hey, why do I do the things that I do? Sometimes it doesn't cross my mind that other people might be interested, so I really do appreciate questions like this. The different subject matters that I choose to place myself within are definitely based off of either dreams that I have, some weird ass dream that was in my mind, and around the holidays I'll feel a certain way, or I was doing some like astronaut generations. And then one time I was like remembering when I used to do more fire dancing, I was thinking about Red Dead Redemption, so I was doing some like cowgirl generations, and then I was like, oh, I should do some like burning like barn or something, and I'm like walking away from a burning barn, and I'm sure that certain people can relate to certain ways that my brain thinks. And for those of you who may feel like you have artistic potential but you don't necessarily have the time or the patience or whatever it is, you're missing that one thing that's keeping you from becoming the great artist that you know that you could be. If you are one of those people and you keep making excuses as to like why you're not making art or why you're not writing, then AI is a perfect tool for you, because in order to get out like quick thoughts, like I would have like really wild, like really in-depth thoughts, couldn't describe in any other way. But if I could send it through Stable Diffusion with a handful of Lauras, and I'm like refining a particular look based on feeling, it's almost like dreaming while you're awake and practicing the art of visualizing in front of you, not just in your mind, externalizing your visualizations and practicing how to do that while you're awake, while you're not just dreaming, while you're like actually in control of your motor skills and not just like sleepwalking or whatever it might be. And learning how to communicate in different ways and how to communicate with different parts of yourself. When I'm using AI art, I'm actually learning so much about myself. The motivation definitely revolves around self-discovery and strengthening my skills around using technology and also being informed and not falling behind and not letting AI get the best of me. I'm the dom in this relationship. AI is the sub. How many iterations does it take before you get what you want? What do some of the middle steps look like, and how do you adjust? My friend then went on to tell me that they just finished working on an AI project at Meta, so that's really cool. So I was like, why do you ask so many questions? Are you working on a new tool or something? I feel so cool knowing people that know how to program, because when I was growing up and playing video games, I didn't know anybody that knew how to program. I didn't even know what programming was. Normally what I'll do in Stable Diffusion, usually I'll start off by choosing my favorite checkpoint, and then I'll put my prompt in the description, and then I'll add a handful of Lauras and make sure that they don't go above 1 in total. I know this sounds weird, but when you add Lauras to your description, there's like a ratio that'll add up to a total of number 1. I think you can actually add more than that, but keep it at 1, then it shouldn't get too crazy. But anyway, it's a long story. So I will normally choose a custom checkpoint, a few custom Lauras without going too crazy on the numbers. I like 16 by 9, so I'll make sure that I have that ratio selected for my generation. And then I like a detailer, because a detailer will fix the face. In the settings, you can choose to save a version before and after a detailer. If you're into this kind of thing, you would love this. It's called Roop. And Roop is really fun because it's like that face swap thing I was telling you about. It's my favorite because I'm using Stable Diffusion 1.5, but when I do the a detailer plus Roop, then it really fixes up the face a lot, and it kind of fixes the whole thing, because That's kind of like my process. And then if one of the generations looks good, then I'll add a number that looks good on a grid. So like 9 or 12 or like 4. I'll get a collage at the end and it'll just like go through and generate a handful. And that way, here's another really good tip, is that something you can do is you can generate 12 images using this sequence and then use those in a storyboard. You can set up a storyboard with artboards in Photoshop or your favorite art program of choice. I also love Serif's Affinity Designer because that has artboards, and also Affinity Publisher, which has page layout so you can publish books. You can design and then publish onto like Kindle or Amazon books. One thing you could do is train an AI model on your own art style and then create like a coloring book using your own generations, using a model that was trained on your art style, and then publish that. And then you could have a lot less guilt and shame around the whole thing. I hope that's a good response to the process question. Kind of felt like there was a rebirth of the collective soul, and so I wanted to make an AI generated series that was reflective of like an angel of death, like one that was like celebrating the beauty within that which is no more, the infinite nature of soul of the universe, and how you can celebrate death and you can admire the beauty of the dark side or whatever, but there's always more. So this other person had responded on this cool picture that I made with AI. I used a picture of my face for this one. On this post, I was like open to potential collabs because I was like, who wants to do like a profile picture with their face on it? And I was like basically trying to offer if anyone wants to do a collab. And my friend was like, with who? Humans or AI? LOL. I don't get it. Are you just putting words into a generator? Is it part your art and then part AI? And she's like, I want to understand what you're doing. What I was thinking was that humans are collaborating with technology. Yeah, Stable Diffusion definitely trained on the whole internet, and you can install Stable Diffusion locally on your computer, and then you can get as creative as you want in terms of the AI art generations you create. So I was doing my best to be unique with the prompt engineering, but also I was using LoRAs, which are trained off of specific styles. It can get arguably more or less ethical, especially when you take a look at some of the cool options on this one site. Civit AI, is that how you say it? You can go over to Civit AI and see for yourself just how many different types of trained models that you can use in your generations. So you would have to use AI ethically at your own discretion, because people are people, and obviously people are going to make all kinds of weird shit out there. You ever feel like AI pics create a negative self-image? It's going to be important for people in general to educate one another on how this technology works and what to be aware of in this world. And also, like, what is reality, and like, who can you rely on? How can you know your inner truth? How can you know and protect yourself in an ever-changing world? I feel like the more flexible we are and the more able we are to evolve with technology and perspective, then the better we will be able to gently nudge reality in the direction that we prefer. And then my friend was like, I feel like if I were crafting new images of myself day in and day out, I might have some sort of cumulative effect on my mental health. And like for us as adults, I imagine it's not a big deal, but for teens or young adults, like we had Cindy Crawford to compare ourselves to, but she was Cindy Crawford, not your own image. And does that make sense? Do you think AI could be a negative impact on young girls, creating the ideal of themselves that might not be physically possible compared to prior generations? I definitely appreciate real beauty. I am not anti-plastic surgery, but if your child who is like under the age of 10 is talking about getting a nose job or something like that, you might want to like have a ongoing conversation with that person as they're, growing up. And I feel like the plastic surgery on young children is definitely one of the more concerning things. And I feel like AI is more of like a simulated experience where I feel like using AI within reason can be more of an outlet for people that may wish that they were, for example, another gender. It could be more of like an outlet. Yeah, I would definitely check in with the youth of today. I wanted to point out a few artists that I found on YouTube who are talking about using AI in their workflow, one of whom is the art of Aaron Blaze, and he does some videos, including one which is called why AI will not be taking your animation job. Then there is another video where he reacts to AI animation from the Corridor crew. I'm a huge fan of the Corridor crew, and I love Disney and Pixar and everything. So I was really happy to see that some artists are totally embracing AI in their workflow. I'm sure all of us would love to save time on the steps that we don't prefer to do so that we can save more time on our favorite parts of the artistic process. So like if you enjoy painting but you don't really like doing all the in-betweens, so the artist could spend more time painting each animatic frame, and then it'll be so much easier to get the in-betweens using AI. Yeah, right here he talks about how it's gonna help and not hinder. I wanted to make sure to point out my list of notes. It's an all-purpose list of notes that I made publicly viewable, and I'm adding a lot of extra stuff on here about AI and consciousness studies and other interesting stuff. Just a few days ago, OpenAI had announced Sora, which is an AI video software. There have been a handful of video generation tools out there, such as Runway ML, and in Stable Diffusion you can do animation, but this is by far the best quality AI animation that I've seen so far, and everybody's already talking about it online, so as far as I can tell, the public can still not use it just yet, but some people are posting from the research paper and stuff, and I'm definitely eager to try Sora when it's available. Okay, so this is the part where I wanted to respond to some questions and comments that were left on my socials. Oh my god, I don't even know how to start this one off because it was actually pretty emotional when it happened. I was so depressed when this one girl from my Discord left, especially during the pandemic. I was not being very social, so to have a few regular people in my chat, it meant a lot. And so to lose someone that I was familiar with from my stream, I totally had to cry about it. And I eventually got over it, but I didn't know how to respond, and I was just kind of like mulling it over. What's it called? Ruminating. I was just ruminating. I was just like, like how bad should I feel, you know? So I just wanted to read what she was saying. Sorry for not getting back to you sooner. I saw that you left my servers, so I didn't rush to respond, but I did want to respond, and I had thought about your comment. Hello, Jenny. I think your focus on AI generation is very concerning. It conflicts with my morals, especially in the context of using the generated things being used commercially. I followed you on Twitch because of what you did then, your focus on game development. Aww, seriously, so heartwarming and then like so sad. Now your focus has shifted to AI, which in my opinion is highly damaging to artists. Anyway, I feel uncomfortable being on the servers, so I'll leave. I still wish you and everyone here wonderful holidays and stay safe. I could totally understand. I'm proudly still using Blender and Unity and doing game dev every day, but I have integrated the use of AI, and I just wanted to say thanks so much for having joined the community for the game development, and I wanted to acknowledge that you had been a loyal person in my chat for so long, and Samantha had gotten into Blender animation at one point, and I was super proud and excited to see where they were going to take that because we were both watching tutorials. So then Martian Games also responded by saying, to explain my viewpoint, AI art is damaging to artists, mostly because it's trained on art from artists that have not consented to their art being used in that context. Plus, selling these artworks is borderline illegal because the person creating the prompts does not own the copyright. Now, if an artist trains an AI on their own art, that's perfectly fine. Or if artists consent to their art being used to train an AI. Pro-AI art people like my sister use the argument, but the AI does exactly what humans do. They learn from other artists. But that is simply not true. AI looks at an image and tries to replicate it as closely as possible, then moves on to the next one. That's not how humans learn drawing. Yes, they do studies, but these pictures will never be an exact replica of the reference. Additionally, selling these replicated artworks is not okay too. Another point pro-AI art people come up with is, well, artists get inspired by other artists and take bits and pieces from their art as inspiration to use it. This isn't a good point for AI art since humans get inspired by other art, yes, but an AI cannot get inspired by art. So yeah, that was Martian's response. But yeah, the diffusion process of how AI diffuses and then recreates images based on prompts is super interesting, and I would definitely recommend looking into it a bit just to learn more. Someone that I know was like, do you see AI as an actual art form? And they're like, I am of two minds. One, prompting a machine to generate images using a data bank of images created by and often at the expense of others doesn't feel like art. It feels predatory and exploitative. However, I can see how artists in the 1400s would have thought that having someone else mix your pigments is cheating. AI is, after all, a tool in the toolbox. Are works created with modern media like Copics, watercolor pencils less art than painting with an artist collected pigment and mix them with a binder? I don't think so. So I get AI is a tool. And two, if we accept that AI is a tool, then we also have to use it responsibly. How do we say it's okay to use a medium that was created using non-consensual data? I definitely believe in the ethical use as much as possible. So in a perfect world, which we all know doesn't exist, everyone would be able to give consent ahead of time. And I have heard of certain data training models which do require consent ahead of time. So in theory, there could be like studios like Pixar or other big studios that want to use AI art, but they're only willing to use the ones that are trained on consensually trained data. So that's what I would recommend in that particular circumstance. I definitely feel protective over artists and those who are more vulnerable, such as children. Overall, even though I would not say all the sourcing is ethical, I would recommend that some people still learn the ins and outs of AI and kind of like just like what to expect for the future, just as like security measures and like just to understand the kinds of scams that are out there now. The world is going to be such a different place in just a year or two, so it's really hard for me to predict like what's going to happen. But yeah, if possible, it would be great if people could give total consent. And I really apologize for any misuse of your own images because that is super fucked up. So yeah, and then my friend was like, there's a big problem with AI images. In a lot of situations, an image has the most impact in evoking emotions and in shaping our view of reality. I suppose it stems from photojournalism. Also, in court cases, imagery is often considered hard evidence. However, with AI, the image that is created may look like a photo or video recording, but totally is not even necessarily a reflection of reality at all, and so it can be a tool to influence our view of the world and influence our behavior, for instance, with elections. This is one way in which AI is extremely dangerous and problematic in my view. People need to internalize that they cannot believe what they see, in the same way that we cannot believe everything that is written. That resonates with me quite a bit, and I would question reality at every turn. And then my other friend was like, AI is changing the way we see ourselves and others, and the use of altered images, as appealing as they may have to been shown to promote body dimorphism. These systems allow you to project and propagate a version of the way you wish you were rather than who you are. It's a constant cycle of self-modification without ever addressing the psychological, emotional, or physical needs of the base self. Now, it's not even celebrities and politicians marketing an unobtainable version of their appearance. It's our friends and loved ones. I remember how impossible it was to fill the mold during paper magazine days, gymnastics weigh-ins with other gymnasts. I can't fathom how fragile my ego might have been if the AI image was literally unobtainable. To piggyback off of that one, I saw a video the other day on YouTube about 9 and 13-year-olds going in for plastic surgery consultations. So I feel like this kind of thing is way more normalized than it's ever been in the past, and it especially was more prominent and noticeable when like Snapchat filters started to get popular. It wasn't until like these plastic surgery videos on YouTube started to come out and I was like, oh my god, people are literally trying to get like real specific looks that are based off of filters and try to stay looking young forever. And it's kind of fun using AI and putting myself in these like really interesting or weird kind of scenarios or whatever. I really like the sensation of simulated experiences. So for me, when I'm playing with AI art, then a lot of that is how do I feel in this environment, like putting my face on a body with an amazing dress, like whether or not it looks like me. It's just kind of fun to feel like, oh, this is out of the ordinary or this is different. But I'm also the kind of person who has always really loved to like dye my hair different colors but I can totally relate to having grown up in an era where it was like teen Vogue or whatever. When you're a growing teenager, it's really important to stay healthy and self-regulation skills and whatnot. To have some unrealistic perception of beauty, I feel like that's kind of up to the individuals. So each individual gets to decide, hey, what do I think is beautiful? Like what makes me feel pretty or beautiful? I guess that like AI art might just not be for everybody, but for me, there's a real distinction between trying to achieve some unrealistic idea of beauty or trying to be something I'm not or somebody that I'm not. As someone who made impulsive decisions that were life-changing when I was young, I would probably say, yeah, maybe, wait until you're 18 to get a nose job or something. I heard that something like the brain doesn't even stop developing until you're 27 or something. Whereas, like, when I was growing up, I used to think, oh yeah, once you're 10, you're an adult. At least when I was 10, I felt like I was an adult. So, but yeah, anyway, back to using ChatGPT or your other favorite chat companion to cross-reference your assumptions. And if you seem to feel like, oh, this seems like it should be true about reality, then maybe go ask chat and see, because you might find out that science has already disproven that, and it can really save you a lot of time and hassle. Cool, so we responded to questions and feedback from my socials. Thanks again to everyone that mentioned anything about AI and giving me a chance to respond and asking me some good questions to answer. And